Welcome to the Working Genius podcast, where we discuss anything and everything related to the 6 types of working genius and how it impacts your work and your life. I'm Pat Lencioni, and I'm your host today. I'm joined by Tracy Noble. How you doing, Tracy?
I'm doing great, Pat.
And Amy Hyatt. How you doing, Amy?
Hey there, I'm sitting in for Cody.
That's right. Cody and Matt are out today.
Cody would say, doing great, Pat.
That's right. No, he's not supposed to use great anymore. He's supposed to come up with another word.
Swell or something like that.
Terrific. Tremendous. And we got Liam on the computer today. How you doing, Liam? Okay, so today we are going to talk about what, Tracy?
We are going to talk about holding back your genius.
Yeah, holding back your genius. Now that sounds kind of weird because so much of this is about using your genius, and that's what we're supposed to do. And we are. The more you get to use your genius in life, the more joy and energy you have, the more successful you're going to be. Not that we all can do it every day, but the more that we are in everything we do, but the more we can live in our genius, the better we are. But, huge but here as I point at my bottom, but there are times when we need to hold it back or we need to regulate it because it's not appropriate. And that's what we want to talk about today is when not to use your genius.
Right. And that's true of every genius. Every genius needs to be held back at times.
Absolutely. Because it's the situation
right.
that determines whether we should be using our genius. And hopefully we'll find a job or be in a situation in life where we're putting ourselves in situations to use our genius. But if we're in a situation that doesn't require our genius, using it is not a good idea.
That's right. So give me an example of when you should not use your genius.
So I'm an inventor. I like invention and discernment, right? So a great example in the world of work is meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to a meeting, you know, if you're a hammer, all the world looks like a nail. If you're an inventor, discerner, all the world looks like a new idea and an evaluating an idea. So I'll go to every meeting and turn it into a brainstorming session.
That's right.
Or an idea evaluation session. Because why? Because that's what I love to do and I'm best at. Some meetings are about just getting stuff done.
That's right.
It's like, so where do we stand on our progress? What do we need to do next? And I used to hijack meetings because that's what I thought, you know, like, oh, this is what I do. Not every meeting is for invention and discernment. Some meetings are just for galvanizing and tenacity. And I have to be quiet or adjust what I'm doing during those meetings.
That's right.
And we all have the potential to hijack a situation with our geniuses. I mean, in a marriage, with your kids, at any time. I'm a wonder discerner. So every meeting for me turns into some kind of contemplative, like, you know, examination. And there's times when that's just not necessary or appreciated. Right, Liam?
Like
he's nodding.
You're 2 days before an event you're doing or something's launching, and you're like, I wonder if this is a good idea. Right? Like, that's not helpful, Amy.
Totally.
But that's what I do.
Exactly. And luckily, you guys have always appreciated that in me. So I've been able to use that here. But I think even like looking back on my childhood and things, being a wanderer, I realized that I learned to stuff that because I didn't feel like people understood it really.
Right.
And I didn't even know it was a thing.
Right.
So it's kind of funny to look back on. But people are like, oh yeah, I was always doing that. And after a while, when you're in middle school or whatever, it's like, no one really wants to ponder that right now.
Yeah, different times in life,
exactly.
our geniuses come into play.
Right.
But so if we're talking at work, so it's like if you're leading meetings, be aware of the fact that every meeting has a different situation, and sometimes your geniuses aren't called for there. Or if you're just participating in meetings, sometimes you need to participate in ways that don't correspond to your genius. And so when I go to a meeting, I have to be like, okay, I need to be in T mode here.
That's
now,
right.
I don't love it. Now, if every day all I'm doing is going to meetings and trying to be in T mode, I'm going to be miserable.
Sure.
But there are plenty of meetings where I have to go, it's time for me to be a T because that's what this meeting calls for.
Well, and that's what I love about Working Genius too. I'm like, oh, these are verbs. I just have to do them. I can do that.
People say, Pat, you're going to have to do some galvanizing today. And I go, okay, I'm ready. I can do it.
Right.
But if I'm doing it just, out of reflex.
And that's so much of it is emotional intelligence and self-awareness and self-regulation and learning those skills. And you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But if we're just responding to what we feel like doing, that's not going to happen.
It's not effective.
One of the ways I disrupt the company through my invention and discernment is with just walking around the office too.
Yes.
Because I don't stop and go, tell me what you're working on and when is it due? I go like, hey, I have an idea. Like, hey, what about this? And they're like, this is not the time to come and bring me a new idea. It's like, but that's what I do. And they were like, yeah, go in your room, your office and do it by yourself.
Right.
Like you said, sometimes I write in a notebook.
Oh, right. Yes. You regulate it by sometimes doing it privately, by going and writing and thinking, and you could probably do more of that. I didn't mean it like
point
that.
taken, Amy.
I just meant like you could allow yourself to do that more.
Absolutely.
I don't think you really allow yourself to do that as much as you could.
Right. Holding back, it may be a better way to look at this is like steering your genius in the right moment and the right way.
Right.
Not always extroverting it, sometimes keeping it to yourself, extroverting it at the right time.
Sure. It's like leveraging it appropriately.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Knowing when to use it, when to hold it back, when.
I was just going to ask, yours being the genius of discernment and enablement, what does that look like for you, like on a weekend when you're with your family? Not to put you on the spot, but you guys were making fun of me because I was saying that on the weekends, sometimes I'll just lay on my bed and like think. And you're like, oh, that sounds fun.
That sounds like fun, Amy.
You'll jump up and respond to something that somebody needs, right, Trace?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, my genius of enablement, I constantly, like if my husband wants to do something, I'm going along for the ride, but I'm often putting my 2 cents. Like, I don't know that that's such a great idea, honey.
Right. Traffic is going to be bad. But
now, your husband likes to golf. You go, I don't think a 4-iron's a good idea on this one.
I let him golf a lot. Of course, we're empty nesters. So, no, but I was actually reflecting on that within the context of the office. Mm-hmm. We're in a huge open space here. And I love this environment because I'm constantly listening to other conversations and chiming in all the time. And I love that.
How can I help? How can I contribute?
Helpful advice
for you?
Yes.
Right.
And I love that. I'll eavesdrop on conversations and I'll put my 2 cents in. I don't know if it's appreciated at all times, but I enjoy doing that.
Well, but because you have discernment too, you're constantly adding value to that. Whereas if I'm using my eye, I might be listening to somebody going, hey, try this instead. And
That's
like,
right.
I don't need a new way to do it. I just need some help. Don't look for me for help. I'm just going to give you a new idea.
That's right.
Now, so in the workplace, this happens all the time. At home, it happens all the time too. Like I think as a parent. So if you were to ask my kids now, I'm an inventive, discerning parent. So my kids say to me, Dad, not another lesson.
My kids say that too. Oh, here goes the life lesson.
Because you and I are similar.
Right,
we're at that end of the scale.
Let me just tell you what everything I know about this topic is.
Right. Whereas somebody else might be a parent down at the T end, like Greg, your husband.
Yeah. It's interesting. My kids go to Greg for money and transactional things, and they come to me for support. Like, Mom, I need your advice. I need your opinion. It's so interesting.
Right.
And it's because of our working geniuses. Right. Greg's a T, I'm a D.
And what a beautiful thing that they can see the difference in what you do.
That's right.
That's fascinating. Now, I also think in relationships, like in my marriage, I think that until I understood this model, I probably over pushed my geniuses. I was constantly wanting to I and D, and sometimes my wife just needs E. She just needs enablement. Like, just help me.
Right.
And even if this isn't the most, like, because I'm a D, maybe it's like, well, I think there's a more efficient way to do this. Listen, dude, I'm not coming to you for efficiency. Can you just help me? Can we just not evaluate this and just do it and just allow me to do it the way I want to do it?
Yeah. And I think we all do that in our marriages. My husband's a WI with a lot of T, and I will come in and just be like, is that the right thing to do right now? Or
you're discerning for him.
Right, exactly. And, not always appreciated.
Sometimes that's great. Sometimes not necessary. We had an interesting example so I'm a discerner. And years ago, tell them the story about the movie.
Oh, yes. The old Charlie's Angels.
Do you realize they made another one of those?
Yes.
Oh, like the first one. Anyway, but that's
one of the things we used to do, and we still do once in a while. Liam, you haven't been able to go to the movies yet, but we'd go to a movie once in a while as a team and just take an afternoon, and it was always fun. And one time we went to see Charlie's Angels, like the 90s version, with Drew Barrymore and can't remember.
Diaz,
yes, and Lucy Liu.
Yes.
Didn't it win the Academy Award?
Not quite.
Anyway, we came back and we got in a huge fight, Tracy and I, against Pat, because Pat was for sure needing to use his D to tell us that it was a terrible movie.
I was a screenwriter.
And we were like, but it was fun. And then we had to like work through that.
Well, it was nostalgic for us because
Right.
we grew up in that era, and Amy and I just, we grew up pretending like we were Charlie's Angels, right?
Yes, exactly. And I always wanted to be Sabrina 'cause she was the smart one.
My sister was always Farrah Fawcett. I hated that.
Here they go, Liam. Here they go. But the funny thing about that was it's like, imagine if you were a chef and we went to Chili's and you said, hey, I liked that. That was a good dinner. And the chef in me, the discerner chef, is like, that wasn't good. It was terrible. It's like, no, Pat, we're not asking you to discern the movie.
That's right.
Just let us enjoy
Yeah,
it.
you weren't wrong.
No,
you weren't wrong.
but it just was not the time. You didn't need my discernment.
Exactly. and we were also like, we're also not saying it's like an Academy Award winner. We're just saying that we happen to have enjoyed it for the 2 hours we were in the room.
But I was determined to use my discernment to convince you that it was a piece of crap.
Yeah. That's one of those table group lore things.
But again, not every piece of our genius needs to be applied at every moment.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're trying today. So I think what would be interesting is to think about whatever your genius is and to say, when do I use that when it's not necessary? And then we could say, and how can I put myself in a position to use it more? And then how can I have a self-awareness in those moments when I go, oh, I really want to use my tenacity here. You're on vacation and you're like, tenacity, probably not that necessary.
That's right.
Exactly.
Some people can't relax. I just need to cross things off a list and I want to get it done. It's like, Mom, Dad, it doesn't matter if we get to see the largest ball of twine.
Like Jeff on vacation.
Oh yeah, Jeff and I went on vacation. He's
yeah.
a T. It's my least.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, okay, we're going to get up at 8:30 and we're going to go to the bathroom and go back to bed. He's like, no, we got to go do all this stuff.
Right, we got a list. It's going to be fun.
Exactly. So let's just be aware of our working geniuses at work, at home, on vacation, and let's know when to use them and when to regulate them or to hold them back. And that's our quick podcast today on working genius. Know when to hold back your genius. We'll talk to you next week. God bless.